Before the pyramids pierced the Egyptian sky, before Babylon dreamed of its towering ziggurats, and long before Rome laid its first stone, there was Jericho. The sun rises over the Jordan Valley, golden and unforgiving. Beneath this relentless light, archaeologists once scraped their trowels against dry soil and uncovered something they didn't expect. Walls, massive ancient walls, older than any known city on Earth. The place was Jericho, and it wasn't just old. It rewrote the history of civilization. Imagine a city that predates writing, wheels, even metallurgy. A city so ancient that its first walls were standing while Europe was still locked in the Paleolithic age. Jericho wasn't built amidst abundance, but in defiance of the desert. It stood stubbornly at the edge of a salty, dead sea, in a climate too dry to nourish, too harsh to inhabit, unless you knew something the rest of the world didn't. That was the mystery. Why here? Why then? In the early 20th century, British archaeologist Kathleen Kenyon arrived at a dusty mound in the West Bank known as Tel es-Sultan. Beneath its surface lay secrets layered over millennia, and as her spade went deeper, the layers of civilization peeled back like a time lapse of human ambition. At the bottom, she found the truth. A settlement from 10,000 years ago, long before pharaohs, Sumerians, or even written mythologies. What she found wasn't just a camp of hunter-gatherers. There were homes, structures made from mud bricks laid with care. There was a wall over 5 meters high and nearly 2 meters thick. A stone tower anchored its defenses, an architectural marvel in an age when most humans still lived in caves or nomadic shelters. This wasn't evolution. It was revolution. The inhabitants of Jericho were part of the Natufian culture, one of the first to abandon the roaming lifestyle of hunter-gatherers. But Jericho was different, even among pioneers. Here they built a wall not for ceremony or symbolic power, but for survival. And it wasn't invaders they feared, it was nature itself. Floods, landslides, the brutal winds that swept through the Jordan Rift. That wall was a defiance of chaos, a monument to human willpower. But the wall also hints at something darker. It suggests hierarchy. Someone had to organize the labor. Someone had to lead. Someone had to rule. So in Jericho, we find not just the first city, but perhaps the first signs of governance. And with governance comes the double edge of civilization. Protection, but also control. At the heart of this city stood the tower, its purpose still debated. Was it a watchtower? A religious structure? A symbol of dominance? Its base was carved directly into bedrock. No blueprints, no mathematics as we know them, yet it rose with astonishing precision. Some speculated aligned with the summer solstice, acting as a primitive calendar. Others believe it was a place of worship, where ancestors were honored and the dead were entombed in silence. And here another layer of mystery unfurls. Underneath the floors of Jericho's ancient homes, archaeologists discovered skulls. Human skulls, deliberately removed, cleaned, and adorned. Faces were reconstructed in plaster, eyes filled with shells, then placed carefully beneath the living spaces. Imagine sleeping above your grandmother's sculpted skull. Imagine the reverence or the fear. These weren't trophies, they were tributes. But to whom and why? Some believe Jericho's people practiced a cult of ancestors, believing their dead held sway over the crops, the rain, or their very survival. Others suspect early spiritual hierarchies, proto-priests shaping the unseen world with ritual and relic. This was a place where agriculture met afterlife, where wheat was sown and the dead were sown beneath the floorboards. But the land itself was no paradise. Jericho's lifeblood came from the Ain es-Sultan spring, a rare gift in a sun-scoured landscape. It made the impossible possible, taming barley and einkorn wheat in a place where heat should have sterilized the soil. It was this spring that may have drawn the first settlers, just as it draws armies and empires today. Because Jericho has never known peace for long, across the centuries it has been a crossroads of faith, empire, and blood. From the Israelites who brought its walls crashing down, to the Byzantines, to the Crusaders and Mamluks, every power that sought to shape the Holy Land left footprints here. The city has died and been reborn more times than any other on earth, and yet it endures. Modern Jericho lives quietly near its ruins, an echo of greatness sleeping in the shadows of date palms. Tourists walk the cracked stones. Children play near ancient walls once soaked in siege, and in the heat that never leaves, stories rise like mirages. One story claims the tower was built in fear of darkness, that early Jerichoans believed the setting sun marked a war between night and light, and they built upward to help the sun win. Another tale says a flood once threatened the city and the tower was a refuge. In both legends, we see the same thread, the belief that stone can defy fate. But Jericho's real story is even more astonishing. It is the first known place on earth where people stopped running, where they built, stayed, and buried their dead, where they planted not just food, but roots. And that decision changed everything. Without Jericho, there would be no Nineveh, no Athens, no New York. Cities are now the skeleton of our species, but Jericho was the heartbeat that started it all. Even its name has echoes that refuse to fade. Jericho, Jericho, Ariha, the city of palms. The name changes, but the soul remains. So the next time you hear of a war or a wall or a sacred place, remember the dust where it began. Remember the people who chose to build instead of wander. Remember the city that taught humanity how to stay. Remember Jericho, because it was not just the first city, it was the first idea. And ideas, as we've seen, are the only things that never truly die.